right, so here we are again, and we're getting into our big stories after AM business. And Parliament has resumed. 3 MPP MPs are to be hurled before the Privileges Committee of Parliament over absenteeism. We know them. We'll be getting into that discussion. We'll also talk about the minority leader demanding that there should be an inquiry into the alleged sale of portions of the Achimota forest. The Achimota forest is back in the picture. It's never gone anywhere anyway. So what are the dynamics we should know, and all the bits about compassionate grounds and people owning land there? We'll get into the details with Alhassan Suini, Member of Parliament, Tamale North, Dr. Kingsley Nyako, Member of Parliament, Kwadaso. Both of them join us right here in the studio. Alhassan, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Ben. Thank you very much for your invitation, and let me say good morning to our viewers.
All right. We also have Dr. Kingsley Nyako from Kwadaso Constituency. Kwadaso, you were just telling me before we came that you had spent your entire, recess at Kwadaso. So what have you been up to in Kwadaso?
So let me say a very good morning to your viewers. Since we rose, I had been in the constituency, so I came down on Sunday night. Because we had internal elections, I need to be there to ensure that the elections were done properly. There were also some litigation issues surrounding the elections at Kwadaso. And I also had to be there to ensure that we went through the process. Luckily for us, the plaintiff's petition was dismissed. So we were able to proceed to conduct the constituency executive elections. As we speak, there's an appeal, but we see how things go. And I also took the opportunity to interact with my constituents, to monitor and observe issues that had to be dealt with. So, so far, it's okay, but in politics, because we have, divergent interests and all that, you wouldn't have it, very easy, So you try to ensure that at least you have the majority of the people on board and pursue an agenda that will kneel to the benefits of all the constituents. So, we see how things go, So, Ben, so if you ask me about Kwadaso, it's okay. And Kwadaso is okay. There are some issues that I've said earlier on regarding differences in terms of positions in the constituency, because we have about three blocks over there, and obviously there'll be issues, but in political circles, these things are normal, but how to navigate yourself away from them and to be focused and ensure that you deliver your mandate to the full fulfillment and benefits of the constituency. For me, that's the most paramount objective that I'm carrying, and I know that the constituents appreciate the letter that I'm doing, and God is also backing me to accomplish my mandate. So far, so good.
All right. So far, so good. Yeah. The recent rains has Kwadaso been affected? It's covered different parts of the country. How have your people fared?
I think Kwadaso, we've not witnessed the devastation that we are witnessing in other parts of the country. So far, I've not seen that. But for me, this is a yearly occurrence, and I think that's something
which is sad, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's become a ritual.
I think something drastic and dramatic must be done to ensure that these occurrences become a thing of the past. Every year we talk about them, and for me, it is also sad and worrying, as if we are not making progress in dealing with the flooding situation in our country.
Is it that we are not making progress, or it is as if we are not making progress? Because look, I see people's homes, electrical gadgets and everything. I was just sharing with Dr. Kwame Asante. Yeah. Do you know how dangerous it is to have a fridge and all of that? The rains have taken over your room. Yeah. Merely stepping in there, you could get electrocuted. It's mind-boggling, and people are living this. People have been living this. Go to Atiko, the police quarters. They've been living that for over 16 years.
Yeah. You see, in some advanced countries, you see this happening, but it is an exception, you know what I mean? At times it happens. It's not like an annual ritual that we are experiencing here. I remember Jacob first time, you know what I mean, Aveno area, Alajo area, they used to have serious problems. But I think that that place is a bit better. Okay, what did we do there to protect the inhabitants over there against those previous devastating floods? Okay, so we need to find a concrete solution to this problem. You know what I mean? It is so worrying that all that, and you see, apart from maybe lack of investment in the area to ensure that this occurrence becomes a thing of the past, human activities, we need to also check our behaviors. You know what I mean? For me, I can tell you that the situation is getting worse. It's getting aggravated because what I'm seeing, you know, waters gathered in people's offices, in their homes.
The Lands Commission itself. I mean, that's how bad it gets. A state institution. They say they have soft copies of everything, but the mere fact that even if we have to do this again, then get the paper documentation again, that's a whole lot of work.
I mean, I might be wrong, but I think that what I've witnessed the last few days is more serious than last year. You know what I mean? So it means that if you're not careful, next year is going to be worse because of human activities. We need to check our behaviors, our attitudes. You know what I mean? This issue is a shared responsibility. Government must do its part. And we, the citizens, we must be patriotic enough and do the right things. Don't do the right things. I mean, we build anywhere. We throw refuse, in gutters and all that. These are not good. For me, if people throw debris and rubbish in gutters, what's the responsibility of the local assembly? What are they doing about that? I mean, the inhabitants, when they see people perpetrating this kind of crime, what is our response to that? In most cases, we watch unconcerned whilst, they destroy the environment. And when we watch unconcerned, this eventually hits us. Okay, so then I think we need to do more about this. I would be sad if we come here next year and we are talking about the same thing. Then we must be proactive in dealing with this canker. You know, apart from damages to buildings and then houses, and human beings are also, suffering. You know, bridges are broken and all that. I mean, Accra is a capital city, and if this thing is happening all the time here, it should be a source of worry. And I think that the president is not happy about that, but we must do something. Those in charge of the department, the ministries, the agencies, the assemblies, and who have been put there to ensure that we live in a very conducive, habitable environment, must begin to lead the way and make sure that this is nipped in the bud.
Okay, the work of ministries, agencies, departments, they must kick in.
Because they are put there to solve a problem.
The point...
Not solving a problem.
The point, Dr. Nyako, is if you leave us all to do whatever we like, that is what will happen. Have you taken a look at the, right in front of Paloma? You see that more of a storm drain, if you like, there. Have you seen how choked it is? And that is replicated in so many different parts of Accra. And every time it rains, go to those neighborhoods. You will see the picture there. So we know what it is, but we turn a blind eye to it, and then we come crying, hey, we want to see more people dying. It's unfortunate I'm saying this, but it is the reality. When people die, then, hey, and we'll do something. Then we go back to sleep, and more people will keep dying. I always go back to that Canadian who used to bet on Accra floods. This guy was winning year after year. They had to stop. They had to stop that betting opportunity because in fact, if he had been betting till today, he would still be winning. Let's start with your constituency before we get into the rates. How is Tamale North?
Well, Tamale North is fine. We are also engaged in the reorganization of our party in preparation for the 2024 general elections. So what is currently happening is that we are registering new members. The registration of old members ended a couple of weeks ago, and we have begun the registration of new members. And so let me take this opportunity to extend an invitation to all in Tamale North Constituency to contact their branch leaders of the NDC to pick up their membership card, especially in the times that we are in. We all have to join forces to rescue this nation and put it back on the track of progress and development. On the issue of floods, unfortunately, my constituency is not also spared. Every time...
Were you there during the recess?
Yes.
Is that where you spent most of your time?
Yes, most of my weekends and the better part of the week I spent in the constituency. There are a couple of trips I had to make abroad. That's what took me out. But like I said, anytime there are heavy rains, parts of the constituency gets flooded. And so when you hear that it is raining heavily in Tamale, you are on tenterhooks because you know that you will be the first point of call when the people are experiencing floods. Areas like Gumani, Kamvletu, Fo, and the surrounding areas always get flooded. Kalpohene, parts of Kalpohene as well. And this is not rocket science. I mean, the solution to this is not like studying rocket science. It is basic. We have these storm drains that we have attempted to construct over the years. In fact, for decades now, the successive governments come, they do a little, and then they abandon it. And that has been the story. So you have this major storm drain running through Gumani, and then the other one also coming all the way from the Garba Lodge area. You recall that one time, even the water in that area took the life of a young lady, mother, who happened to be the classmate of the vice president. He attended the funeral, made a number of pledges in 2017, 2018. None has been redeemed, and the people still continue to live with the fear of getting flooded every time a heavy rain comes down. But in general, I think that it is a shame, a collective shame, that in this day and age, we still discuss floods every year and the effects of it every year. I mean, I have said that it looks as if Africans, and for that matter, Ghanaians, are blessed to their point of curse. I compare our situation in terms of flood to how other parts of the world have been able to deal with snow. I mean, I believe snow is worse than floods. Why? Because snow falls consistently, sometimes for weeks. Yet people have been able to manage their communities and their cities and their countries in such a way that the impact of snow on life activities and threats to life and property is that minimal. But in our case, you don't have a situation where rain falls consistently for 3 or 4 days.
Right.
It just
Which is a good thing, because look, when it rains for 2-3 hours.
That's why I say we are blessed. That's why I say we are blessed to our point of curse. It just rains for a couple of hours, and every year, for decades now, we count heavy losses after few hours of rain. That is something you cannot, accept. As a people who are also given, the knowledge and the resources to do things right. And I believe, I agree with Doug, that people who are in authority must begin to address this issue holistically. And that includes all of us. The throwing of good money at this problem over the years have yielded very, very little results. So we need to begin to look at how the money that we have are thrown at this problem of floods. I mean, the minister said they had spent 450 million Ghana cedis in the last couple of months or years or so, in dealing with floods. And yet people are dying, people are losing properties. So it will be important to find out in which areas did we spend that 450 million and what, benefits or impact have we gotten from that amount of money. And same can be acts of previous expenditure that we have extended in the area of
managing the same
situation. I think that we have to show our anger as a people you know, and raise our voices to demand better from city authorities and all those who are charged with the responsibility of making our cities safe. I agree again with Doc when he says that human behavior is key. But you see, human behavior is also controlled. And human behavior also even includes maybe this is a diversion, but the decision to, you know, reclassify Achimota forest and turn it into a concrete jungle is human behavior.
Right.
That's human behavior. I know we'll discuss that. That's human behavior because it has taken human beings to decide that the best use of the forest that today makes the flooding in Accra less, you know, impactful, you know, the decision is that it should be replaced with concrete jungle. And that is human behavior. And again, if you go to our communities and our cities, they are supposed to be governed by bylaws. People.
Question is, are the bylaws working?
Exactly.
Are they kicking in?
People who are tasked with the responsibility of ensuring that the bylaws work should be seen doing what they are supposed to do. You go to
Kaswa, you go to Waja, you go to Shama, you go to places where people, people are building in all kinds of places. We know this is a disaster.
Exactly.
We're waiting for it to happen.
Exactly. And so the human behavior is not just, limited to people who are out of power, who are doing the wrong thing. It is also extended to people who are in authority and have the responsibility of ensuring that those who will want to cut corners and do the wrong thing are checked and put right. Because human nature as it is, if you do not provide those balances, those checks, you know, people will want to do things the way they
like
feel.
I said, I mean, if you give the advantage to people, they'll
always abuse and exceed.
But how do you react then? And I just don't want to mention the person's name. We saw a tweet recently from, someone in establishment. Let's put it that way. At least who is tied to establishment.
Yeah, I know who.
And the post was, it was the headline, daily graphic, like this, from 1960. And it was talking about the fact that, yes, Accra had been ravaged by floods and all of that. So it's some 61 years on, and we're still practically in the same situation, if not worse. Dr. Nyako and Al-Hassan, if not worse. How does that strike you? Because then, I mean, when I sit down as a non-politician, and I look at that, I'm like, oh, okay, so then, I mean, it is, it probably forever will be, so let's just fold our arms, right?
I felt very insulted, and I'm sure many Ghanaians also felt the same way. I think that it was insensitive on the part of this influential fellow to have, sent out such a tweet. And people, have gone even back to dig for his old tweets when he did not have the influence in terms of impacting government, the way he does now, and what he tweeted about, floods in Accra. And it is just a sign of the insensitivity that some people who are in authority are beginning to show when people express concerns and frustrations that they are faced with daily. I don't think that was, appropriate at all. Because why? You recall that in opposition, people like himself, ridiculed Oko van der Poy when Accra got flooded at the time. Yes, former mayor of Accra. At a time that they were hosting a conference on resilient cities.
Oh, yeah, I
remember that.
I remember.
The excitement with which they ridiculed.
And that was a bad thing, though. I mean, you're hosting on resilience and your city is flooded.
Yes. You recall the excitement with which they ridiculed him and showed how incompetent and inept, the administration at the time was. For which reason they asked the people of Ghana to give them the mandate. So if you got the mandate 6-7 years down the line, Accra floods, and you tell us that it's been flooding since 1960. Are you not insulting us? So I think it was so insensitive.
Right.
If I can add,
quick reaction.
I think we need to be, as I said earlier on, very proactive. If you look at our assemblies, then you go to some areas where the inhabitants don't even have a place to dump their refuse.
Right.
So you ask yourself, where do they dump them? So I think that the assemblies,
So that's a realistic problem.
the assemblies must be very, very proactive and make sure that they don't give opportunity for the inhabitants to do things their own way. Because honestly, if you don't have a place to dump your refuse, you'll be tempted to throw it anywhere. And when it is thrown anywhere, another issue is that how are the laws applied to such persons? I've led so many cleanup exercises in my constituency. You go and desilt a gutter, and about a month or so time, it is choked again. You realize that the people are not taking personal responsibility. We need to take personal responsibility as individuals to make sure that...
It is choked again, perhaps because of the first point you made. The Assembly has not made provision for proper disposal of the waste. So it impacts the human behavior. That's the point. That's the point.
And we can even talk about desilting and all of that, and how in some areas
regular
this is stalled and all of that. That is a disaster.
And you observe that the flooding is caused by some of these activities, most of them. So if the assemblies are proactive and make sure that the necessary amenities are provided, number one. Number two, consequences to some of these behaviors. If the laws are applied, I'm sure that we'll be making progress. We don't have to leave everything at the doorsteps of government. Government must play its role from the top. But at the local level, that's why we have this decentralization system in place. The local assemblies, for me, should be at the heart of fighting this perennial canker confronting us all the time.
Okay, all right.
For me, that is very important.
Hold it there for me. Let me come back briefly on this bit, very briefly to you, Al-Hassan Suidi. In this 30-year experience of democracy in the Fourth Republic, the MPP, as of now, has enjoyed 14 years in power. 2000 to 2008, and now 2016 till 2022. You have enjoyed 16 years in power, your party. Because we are 2 years away from chalking 32 years in the Fourth Republic. What have you, what can you also say you've done, your party, in terms of dealing with flooding? Because if we were all chipping in our bits, maybe the situation wouldn't be as bad as it is. What have you done in terms of resolving the problem?
Well, I like the zeroing in on the NDC, which is very easy, but just 2 years apart. Maybe in about 2024, when we have this discussion, then we would have done equal number of years.
I'm just trying to find out.
Yes, I agree.
As I go here, I also want to find out, what have you guys been doing?
I agree with you that it is a fair, request to make, that we must all come to the table with what we've been doing over the years. But clearly, if you look at the storm drains that he spoke of, Alajo to Nima today, which has become a receptacle of vehicles these days when it rains, many of these projects were either started, continued, or completed by the administration of the NDC. At some point, the MPP would have also gone into it. So, but we need more of such drains, and we need better planning. In my view, what we really need is a national development plan that we will all agree with. Because this, bits and pieces of NPP does this to deal with flood, so they do a drain to this point. NDC comes, they also take it to some point, or even abandon it and go and start another one. It's not the appropriate way to deal with this situation. But clearly, you cannot take away the contributions of these two political parties when it comes to improving drainage and improving the implementation of bylaws, such as breaking down buildings, that are put up in waterways. But the conversation we are having this morning is that all of that have not fixed the problem to, our admiration as a people, to our satisfaction as a people. And that is why we need to begin to demand that more is done. Some of the transformations that have taken place, Circle used to be worse than it is today. But for the inability to continue with the project of working on the Odona, is that the name of the place? Yes. If we had reconstructed the Odona the way that Circle was reconstructed to complement Circle, I'm sure we wouldn't have had floods there. But if you do one and you leave the other, you are still going to have this situation. So we are saying that we need to have a plan. I'm saying that we need to have a plan that all parties will buy into, so that when the party like the NDC does the transformation you see around Circle and unfortunately leaves government, the next government should be thinking of what to do around Circle to complement the improvement there so that it gets better. And not just to say, well, what have you done, and yet people are dying, people are losing properties.
Make this very brief. I want to run one thing by you.
You remember engineers and planners and the fact that government had equipment and it had to desilt it for free, and the hula baloo around it, the place is stuck there. Today, no one is doing anything there, and then the situation is still biting us. So the politicization is also the problem.
You and I know, and I made an earlier point by saying that we can't do away with flooding. Flooding at times is caused by, a natural, event. In advanced jurisdictions, flooding happens. So
we saw Germany. Was it last year?
Yeah,
chaotic scenes.
So we will keep
These are not annual events, though. We need to stress that. They don't experience it.
I'm making a point. I'm making a point. I'm saying that occasionally it happens due to whatever reasons. Okay, but the point is that what we are seeing is self-induced. Okay,
self-inflicted.
That is it, because it can be if we do our things well. Now you see the debris in the gutter. You see them. Who caused them? The human beings who caused them. So my point is that we have to.
So whom do you blame? The human beings who caused them, or the state authorities who are not ensuring that the people can't do that in the first place, or that if you do, there are punitive measures?
So I did psychology, and I've taught psychology for a very long time. Consequences of behavior are very important. If people see that what they do will be rewarded or punished, then they think twice before they do it. So if people misbehave and they are not punished, tendency for them to continue is there. So laws must work, okay? And if you're a patriotic citizen, you also understand that you don't have to do anything that will injure your environment or your community, okay? So, this is a two-way street. I studied in Germany, okay? It's one of the cleanest countries that I've seen. And what I learned there was that when I even use something, okay, and I have to dispose that thing off, and I don't see any garbage bin around, I put them in my pockets or in my car. It has been with me till today. So if you are conscious.
I do sing. I never drop. So there's a certain consciousness, but you have to instill it in people.
Yeah,
there are people who will actually sit in trotro,
exactly.
and they will tell you, I don't want to drop it in the trotro. They feel as though they were dirtying the trotro, but they feel comfortable littering the streets.
That's it. So if you have this state of consciousness, Suini also has, and I also, and others have, this negative impact on the environment will diminish, I'm telling you.
Right.
So we need to enforce the laws. We ourselves must also ensure that we love our country, we love our environment. We must do right to promote the safety of our environment.
All right. Very quickly, so I want us to focus on Parliament and the Achimota bit, but I just quickly have to sneak in this bit, and I'm looking at the time so that we can, in 3 minutes maximum, if you can. The Awin situation where, a party office of the NPP has been set ablaze and all those developments. Now, the NEC is calling for a by-election. The people are saying no, that they feel disgruntled like we saw in Okaikwe South. And they're accusing some top officials in the party of manipulating the electoral process to favor some candidates. It appears it's turning out to be bad to worse, frying pan to fire within your party's, I don't know, when it comes to the by-elections. What exactly is happening?
At our Wing constituency, it's not a by-election. I think.
Well, not technically not a by-election.
The National Council asked the election to be rerun.
Yeah.
And
that's the proper term. Thanks for the
correction. Yeah, rerun, and the people objected to it. But you see, there are suitable methods of dealing with some of these things. The National Council decided that, per the evidence that it has before her, the election has to be rerun. If you disagree, that is not the way to go by touching the party office. Because at the end of the day, you also need resources to rebuild that office. That attitude, for me, is something we don't have to entertain or condone. In my constituency, there were issues. Some people petitioned the regional party, the national party. We met the election committee, and we were absolved. Subsequently, because they were not satisfied, they went to court, okay, and court dismissed their application. Okay, as we speak, they filed an appeal, right? So, I mean, that's the way to go. Okay, so you don't take the law into your own hands. We are building a democracy. We need to be, exercise restraint in some of these, things. Because at the end of the day, some of these things can even impair the image and the reputation of the party and the country, which is worrying. Okay, so I would advise people who have issues that let us resort to the right procedures in dealing with differences and issues that we think are not inuring to our benefit or detrimental to our position.
So you think this doesn't point to a real problem in the party structures in how you've gone about? Because it's not one. Yeah. You see here in Accra, this is Western North. Yeah. In so many pockets of the country where you're facing these problems. And it appears your leadership has lost control over the grassroots. Because everybody is doing, this burning bit, we've seen it up north, we are seeing it in Western North, we've seen so many things happen. What is happening?
We have 275 constituencies, right? And for me, I can say that these are pockets of issues, isolated issues, though sad, because majority of the constituencies don't have the issues that we are experiencing right now in some constituencies. The NDC is supposed to have theirs from next month or so. And the way I see our democracy, for me, 3 decades, some of these things happen, but I think that as we move on, they will reduce to the barest minimum. It doesn't mean that the party leadership has failed. If the party leadership has failed, they wouldn't in the first place have called them for resolution, listen to them, give them audience, and said that per the evidence we have, we think that has to be rerun.
So you disagree with some of those, and this isn't the first time we've had this, just to wrap. You disagree with those at the grassroots who are saying, we feel the neck, we feel the party in some of these constituencies is trying to impose people on us. You're trying to find a way of getting some people in when we at the grassroots don't want those people.
People have divergent views. People have supported, people they support.
Okay.
So always they're more likely to stand by the person they support. In my case, for example, I've heard people saying that I'm being favored and all that. These are coming from people who are opposed to me. And in human societies, Ben, these things are normal. Okay. These things happen. Okay, they might be abnormal, but they happen. They are part of how we build society. But I believe that our 30 years of democratic governance, we can improve. Okay, so moving forward, you see improvement in the way we do our things. Very soon, if there's more transparency, people have belief in the system, because then we are sure that these things...
and the transparency and the rest will not just happen overnight. We need to let the systems kick in.
Like took time.
Former President Obama said.
US has been around, the democracy is about 2 centuries or so. Okay, right. So we will get there.
We shall get there. Let's get into the substantive matters. Let me just shout Kaguta, Joel. You are watching us live from Uganda. Thank you for doing the watching. Parliament...
I'm back in. Comment on that one.
No.
I should comment on the MPP.
You are yet to have yours, so
okay.
I'm just asking.
No, go ahead if you want to briefly, and then we'll get into Parliament.
I'll postulate what will happen in their party.
I understand your difficulty in commenting on this matter, because his constituency has had its own share, and I believe that was one of the reasons why he had to stay in the constituency throughout the recess to douse the flames.
Oh, no.
You know, there was a
Yes.
challenge to even prevent them from having the elections because they thought that the ground was set up to favor him.
But I made the point. Myself. They went to court.
That's the point he just made.
Yeah, they went to court and the court dismissed the application.
No, in fact, they granted the injunction at first, but other things happened. You know,
Other things like
you
what?
and I know.
I think we can zero it.
But that's by the way.
On the broader
I wish you
matters.
well. Yeah, but it's part of it. It's part of it. It's democracy. It's internal democracy, and the general feeling and sentiments in the MPP that they are losing their democratic credentials.
Oh no, that's not.
As far as the organization.
Is that how you feel?
Oh, that's not true.
I'm saying the general feeling in the MPP. I'm not in the MPP, so I can't feel that
that's
way.
not true.
I'm just saying the general feeling in the MPP is that they are.
You are yet to have yours, so we shall see what is going to happen.
You know,
Brother.
and the widespread agitations, you know, should not surprise you. I mean, if you follow the district chief executive elections across the country, you saw what they did. You know, was that democratic?
Elections.
In some cases, some assemblymen prevented by force using, you know, states' security from accessing even the grounds. I mean,
No, there were no district.
I condemn the violence, and I urge the security agencies in the Awin constituency or area to deal with those who may have engaged in this violence. And I am hoping they are doing same in second deputy speaker's constituency for Mina, you know, where some people also engage in that. I hope they are doing all of this. But generally speaking, I sympathize with members of the MPP who are beginning to realize that the current crop of leaders of their party have corrupted the democratic credentials of the party. But this corruption started in opposition when President Akufo-Addo took over as the leader of the party. I sympathize with them that they are beginning to feel the effect of that the undemocratic tendencies of the current crop of leaders.
MPP is the most democratic party in this country, and you know that. If it comes to democratic credentials, no party in this country beat us, and you're aware. You know what I mean?
Well, you can tickle yourself.
No, I can hypothesize.
You can tickle yourself.
What is going to happen during the internal elections?
The NDC's internal
It's going to be
election.
worse than what we are going through. And
That's what you foresee.
I'm telling you, that's what I'm saying. I'm hypothesizing. He is a politician, okay? He's been around for a long time. Used to be a journalist. Our democratic dispensation is growing. Some of these teething problems are expected. And I'm convinced that a time will come that these things will be either nipped in the bud or we see them on a minimum scale. Okay. So
right.
And we have to be fair to the facts and put this thing in context.
Right.
I don't say Akufo. What has Akufo done in
I sympathize. I mean, you hear it among the MPP that their party is hijacked. Their party is hijacked by undemocratic elements.
Oh, come on.
Let's move the conversation.
Both of you think about what is going to happen to, I mean,
he says you should do
Yeah.
Think about the fire that is coming.
Well, there's no fire coming at all. There's no fire.
Okay. Parliament has resumed.
I agree with them that you will have, you know, bits and pieces of some of these disagreements when elections
they do happen.
But when it becomes widespread and begin to engender the feeling of undemocratic credentials of leadership,
it becomes a problem. Party offices were touched down in your own party.
Well, pray there will be no fire on the mountain in your party.
No, that's the point.
Because when there's fire on the mountain, we'll come here and do this.
That's the point I'm making. That over the years, all parties every now and then, when they go to elections, you know, deal with these disagreements that sometimes get violent.
But not on this scale.
But not on this scale. That is the difference that I'm making.
And he is saying we should put him on record that you are going to.
That will have worse. That will have worse.
No, how many constituencies can you mention?
Oh.
You have 275. How many can you mention?
Oh, unless yours is part. Unless yours is part.
No.
Yours is part.
No. Let's clarify it. In democratic dispensation, when people have issues, there are laid down procedures that they have to follow. And I've told you in my constituency.
Doc, I think it's clear.
When they had issues, they went to NEC.
I don't want to go into the details of Kwadaso, so let's move on.
And the court dismissed.
Let's not take this as a personal problem.
Yeah, so let's go.
All right. Parliament has resumed, and we're looking forward to a whole lot. One of the major issues to contend with has to do with, should we say the famous or the infamous 3?
Yeah.
And coming before the Privileges Committee and what we can expect. I'll start with you, Al Hassan. What do you foresee? What are you looking forward to as these three? Because I know you have a position on this matter. Is your position still the same?
Yes, definitely. I mean, I think that Parliament should not bother itself with somebody like Adwoa Safo.
They shouldn't. When you say they shouldn't bother themselves, what do you mean?
I think that she was called to higher service after she was voted for by the people of what's the name of the constituency?
Domi.
She was called to higher service as Minister of State of the Republic of Ghana.
When she was made Minister for Gender,
yes,
Women and
higher service,
Social Protection,
with the responsibility of running the ministry. In the beginning, it was clear to all of us that the appointing authority did not know her whereabouts and could not bring her down. Yet, she remains Minister of State. That, for me, is an insult that I still cannot fathom why we, as Ghanaians, are comfortably living with.
Cecilia Abinadapa, the last time I checked, was still acting.
I said, and you will agree with me, that in the beginning, it was clear to everybody that the appointing authority did all that it could, gave us all the timelines that she was coming back to work, and failed before someone was appointed to act. I mean, the impudence alone should attract an outright dismissal. And as to why the appointing authority, His Excellency the President, with all his government, the no-nonsense Nana Akufo-Addo that we're told he is, continue to tolerate and make us accept that, oh, someone is acting, no problem, someone is acting. It beats my mind that we are that tolerant as a people. It beats my mind. And that is why I think that if we can tolerate the president like that, who called Adwoa Safo to higher service, why should Parliament bother? Parliament will also be tolerated if it doesn't do anything. Because in the scheme of things, I mean, her role is to her constituents, and her constituents have not petitioned Parliament. They haven't. Maybe they are satisfied with whatever she's doing. So what has Parliament got to do, apart from maybe our standing orders and laws? Really, in my view, personal view, I don't think we should bother ourselves with it. But on the argument...
So should we just leave her?
On the argument, let the constituents petition, and it is in the law. If the constituents think that they are not well represented, they can petition Parliament. And that is what even resulted in the disagreement between the minority chief whip and the speaker when this matter was referred to the Privileges Committee. Because clearly, in our standing orders, the speaker makes such referrals after a petition is presented by a member of the House. In this case, there's no such petition. And so, really and truly speaking, what are we dealing with?
Is this a test?
Then you have the majority leader make the claim or the point, supported by some senior, MPs on the side of the majority, that the matter must end at the Privileges Committee. When no matter referred to a committee has ever ended at the committee. No matter ever referred to a committee of Parliament has ever ended at the committee level. But on this matter, you have the majority leader trying to convince all of us that it should and can end at the committee.
So just to confirm,
I disagree with that also. My position there.
For me. Did you say earlier that Adwoa Safo's impudence
yes,
warrants an outright dismissal?
An outright dismissal, yes.
Okay.
Her impudence, I think, warrants an outright dismissal. But unfortunately, our president is lame duck. He can't act. Or perhaps maybe Adwoa Safo has something on him that
is not an
maybe
nice
because
thing to say, is it? To call him a lame duck.
It is a lame duck is not an insult. It's a political term that is used
I didn't say it was an insult. I just said it's not a particularly nice thing to say.
But so I am saying that for me, the majority leader's push for this matter to end at the committee level is something again that we must all resist. And
that is a Privileges Committee.
Exactly. No matter ever referred to a committee has ever ended at the committee level.
So you're one of those who say it must go to the Privileges Committee, come to plenary.
Come to plenary and let the plenary take a decision. In fact, when you look at our standing orders, under the Privileges Committee, it is stated categorically that when referrals are made to the Privileges Committee, they will report to the plenary.
Isn't it going to be problematic if it came there, especially looking at the numbers in Parliament? We might end up with another e-levy situation. Don't you think so?
How? Which is the e-levy situation that
I mean,
ended up with?
Where we know the requirement when it comes to numbers on,
Right.
on such issues.
Right.
Do you think you can marshal numbers from your end, for example? Because even in your end, there are some who say, oh no, this is not a big deal. I mean, people have done it in the past. It's just now that the noose seems to be tightening around the necks of these three.
Whatever we will have, whatever situation that will play out in the plenary is better than what will play out at the committee.
Why?
I tell you, clearly, in my view, the stage is set to exonerate by the numbers of the majority, Kennedy Agyapong and Henry Korte, and to punish Adwoa Safo. And I'm saying that Parliament should not be seen to be cleaning.
Is that
That's how I see
happening?
it. That's what I'm saying.
They want to
view.
punish Adwoa Safo and let
In my view,
Henry Korte
the
and
executive,
Agyapong have a,
in my view, the
field day.
executive, led by His Excellency the President, does not have his morning, TV, the balls, to deal with Adwoa Safo. Forgive my French. The President doesn't have the balls to deal with Adwoa Safo. So he's doing it through Parliament. So in my view, the stage is set for the two to be exonerated by the numbers that they have on the committee. And then Adwoa Safo be sanctioned and removed from Parliament, and perhaps by extension removed.
Just clarify for me, because I want to come back to Dr. Nyako. Is this a test for Parliament? Is this a test of the efficacy, the effectiveness, and the possibility of Parliament to live above the border and say, we are parliamentarians, we are masters of our own rules, we still go by the rules, and if you fall foul of the rules, we are ready, even if you are one of us, to deal with you. Is it a test?
If it is a test, then it's a wrong question. The question should be that a petition is sent to Parliament by the constituents themselves. The petition referred to the Privileges Committee. The Privileges Committee determine, that, and report to Parliament to take a decision. That would be the appropriate question.
All right.
To use to test Parliament.
So
let me come to you. Just try to make it a little brief, because I have to go via Zoom as well and interact.
Oh, no, it's
no, but go ahead. I'm just saying that.
So the first point I want to make is that the President is not lame duck. He is very effective. The President was the one who appointed Adwoa Safo. And if he so wills to relieve her of her portfolio, then he will do that.
We can do so.
And he should know that on October 6, 2021, Adwoa Safo had already applied for leave of absence. And that leave of absence was extended by the President. Okay, so as we speak, that leave of absence still holds. I don't know the details of the content surrounding what she saw from the President. But it's on record that Adwoa Safo is on leave. Okay, and the President can decide to fire her if he's convinced that it has to be done. And he is also saying that the target is Adwoa Safo. And I disagree with him. Because the petition or the referral to...
Why do you disagree with him?
Yeah,
especially when we look at the fact that when it comes to Kennedy Agyapong and Henry Korte, people have not really, but it's always been Adwoa Safo.
The referral to the previous committee was not done by the majority. It was not suggested by the President. It was done by the Speaker of Parliament. Speaker of Parliament. And I remember in the House, in the House, Muntaka challenged it.
Show me in our standing orders. I can see you have it, where the Speaker can so motive.
No, I'm saying that Muntaka challenged the Speaker's decision, and he said he was going to come with a substantive motion to rescind it. Okay, so until that one is done, the referral, I supported Wontumi on this set with Roxanne. I held the position of Muntaka, okay? But you cannot sit here and try to impute wrong motives into the majority and the President. That is so unfair and wrong.
All right, so
tomorrow,
points made. Let's address the substantive issue.
If it turns out, because see, if you read our standing orders, Order 164, when the committee is done, the committee will have to make recommendations to the House.
Exactly.
Okay? So if it turns out that Adwa Safo is exonerated, what will be your position again? So you don't have to jump the gun.
I'll be happy.
That is why you have to be very careful about what you say.
I can bet.
That is why I want to advise
you.
I want to advise you that, you see, you don't have to be jumping the gun.
Look,
wait till,
I am saying that I will be happy to be wrong, but I can bet my last penny that I am not wrong. The intention of the majority is to use Parliament to clean the mess that the executive has failed to clean.
What you should know, and I'm sure you know, unless you are pretending, is that if you read Order 164,
Al-Hassan, are you pretending?
Yeah, if you read Order
I'm not a pretentious person.
If you read Order 164,
right,
the mere fact that you have absented yourself for 15 days doesn't automatically expel you from the House. That's why the committee is there. You need to offer explanations.
Right.
You have to do that. So it's possible that Adwa Safo's explanation,
and even with the 15, it must have been without, getting the requisite permissions, because there are processes.
Yes. It is clear in orders. Order 16 and Article 97 1C, it is there. So Adwa Safo, for all you know, has legitimate reason to offer the committee, and she can be exonerated. So let us be fair to the facts. Okay, his position is the same position that my good friend and chief whip on the other side, Muntaka, holds. And that is unfair. It amounts to what Kokubakon has been saying, premature ejaculation. We don't have to do that. Okay, let us give the committee the benefit of the doubt. You don't sit here, okay, and suggest that the committee. No, you don't sit here.
You stop all of us from raising the red flags until we are slapped by the flag, and then we are so shocked to react. That is your intention
of the members. You don't. You don't.
That is your plan. Right. You always say, "Oh, let's not do that. Let's not do that."
Some of your members,
then we are slapped with the
position of the majority. Okay, so you are a member of Parliament. We have committees. It's better committees. You don't sit here and try to dent their integrity.
It is clear from the outings,
that's
the discussion,
right, and parliamentary.
The focus is Adwa Safo.
You don't do that. You don't do that. Give them a modicum of integrity and dignity and respect.
Why are you trying to bend them? Why are you trying to bend the rules? Why are you trying to bend the rules?
But the speaker was the one who made a referral.
No. Right. Then why are you saying that the Privileges Committee is seized with the authority?
I'm saying that
to decide this matter on behalf of the
but they'll decide.
Why do you not want it to come to the plenary?
They'll make
because you have a majority.
Recommendations
you have a casting vote
to the speaker, and then where?
Did you hear?
No, if you read it,
you are reading the correct thing, but that is not how the majority leader interpreted it.
No, if you read Order 164.
164.
For the sake.
So just to wrap up that briefly, let me bring in
of our revered viewers. Let me read Order 164 for us to appreciate what the previous committee has to do. Order 164 says, there shall be a committee of privileges which shall consist of the first deputy speaker as chairman and not more than 30 other members. It shall be the duty of the committee by order of the House to inquire into any complaint or contempt of Parliament or breach of privilege or any matter of privilege which may be referred to it, and to recommend to the House such action as the committee may consider appropriate. That's what it says.
Recommend.
Recommend to the House.
So if the recommendation can be accepted or rejected. Read two.
No, read two. That's what I read.
It shall
be recommended to the House.
Yes, it shall be the duty of the committee by order of the House to inquire into any matter or complaint.
And recommend to the House
of contempt of Parliament or breach of privilege or any matter, which is recommend, and then they recommend to the House, and the House will take a decision.
No, it's not there. The House decision is not there.
Hold on for me.
But why are they recommending? They would say they would have reported to the House. They would have used recommend. They would have said report to the House.
I wish
a report is different from recommend.
I had a bell like in primary school back then.
We are reasonable people in the House.
Hold on.
If a report is brought to us,
right,
and you read the report and you realize that there are issues, I don't think nothing bars you from raising an issue.
Break time, please. Hold on for me. Hold on. Nehemiah Atiga is principal lead at Odikro. A very good morning to you, sir.
Thank you very much.
I'm sure you can tell there's fire on the mountain. Fire in the studio here. You've heard all the banter from Alassane Suidi, Member of Parliament, Tamale North, who has his position. He feels Sir Adwoa Safo is being singled out, and that the matter shouldn't be left at the Privileges Committee level. It should come to the plenary, and that is what their own, guidelines say. Dr. Kingsley Nyako, Member of Parliament for Kwadaso, disagrees. He feels it should end at the committee level. When you look at this situation in respect of the 3 MPs who are supposed to be hauled before the Privileges Committee, what is your take? Where do you lie on this bill?
Okay, so first of all, like we've said in the past, this is a welcome development because in the past you've seen MPs go in contravention of Article 97 Clause 1C and nothing has been done. And it would seem like nobody is willing to trigger the motion for them to be referred to the Privileges Committee. And as I was listening, I could hear Honorable Suhini talk about the fact that Adwoa Safo's constituents should be the ones petitioning or should be the ones moving for such a thing to happen. But I don't think it's stated anywhere in the Constitution that if an MP goes in contravention of that article of the Constitution, then you are waiting for their constituents to come in to make this petition or initiate this thing. And so in a situation where someone has petitioned the Speaker and there's a move towards referring these MPs to the Privileges Committee, I think that we should be happy that for the first time, this particular article is one way or the other being enforced. We shouldn't preempt how the committee is going to do their work. Let's give them the opportunity to do it. In fact, if this was made public or open, everyone would be happy because we would know the sort of questions that are asked and we know the sort of things that will be put on the table for everyone.
So you would have wished for it to have been open?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
And so if we did that, maybe everybody would be clear on the sort of questions they asked and the sort of responses they got. And then when they submit their recommendations to the House, it will be based on the work that we all saw. And so there's nothing hidden under any pot. Everybody will see what has gone on. As compared to a situation where they have their meetings and then they probably take a certain decision or bring recommendations that may be skewed in a certain direction. And so if we see, if everybody wants this to be done properly and without any form of, should I say, acrimony, then we would hope that this is done in the open.
All right, we would want this to be done in the open. Do you agree that the buck should stop at the committee level, that they should decide and let it all end there?
Well, I think Parliament as an institution have always used an approach where committees would submit recommendations or a report on their work. And so the report or the recommendations is usually not the end of the road or the end of the process. I think once the report is submitted or recommendations are submitted, there's always some form of discussions around the issue. So if you say it should end at the committee, it means that you are changing the way the House has operated over the years. And so it's difficult to stand by that approach where you say it should end at the committee.
So you would say, you're saying fundamentally that would contravene the very standing orders by which they operate?
Yes.
Is that a yes?
Yes, that is a yes.
Okay. So you're in support of, yes, they make the recommendations and the plenary should then, decide on the matter? Or how should it go from your end?
I mean, I think that if it comes back to the plenary, there's almost if we were to go by Honorable Suhini's submission, it almost look like a situation where people may decide that let's save our colleagues if our colleagues were going to be kicked out of Parliament, or let's kick out those that we don't like. I mean, it will almost seem like that, but you can't also start a precedence where now committees take a decision for Parliament and even for the nation. And so there's truly a need for that conversation at the plenary to take the final decision based on what the recommendations are, based on what the report is, as compared to just taking a decision and saying that these folks, yes, I mean, they are in contravention of the Constitution. The Constitution clearly says that they need to lose their seats for by-elections to take place. Do you want to use that approach, or want a situation where at least there's almost a second layer of discussions based on the recommendation? Because maybe the recommendation may state that Honorable Adwoa Safo had a legitimate reason to be away, and so all of them would then vote on the issue and say that, okay, we should consider what was committed. And then maybe her reason is not legitimate, so all of them decide that, you know what, you can't be a member of the House and not make any effort towards representing your people, because then this limits our debate and decision-making process, and it makes us inefficient as a House when it comes to parliamentary business. So then you may then decide that, you know what, we are just going to allow you to go because you haven't served your people, you haven't represented them. So it just goes back to a point where they have to have that conversation around the report and the recommendation than anything else. We can't walk away from that.
All right. When you look at the three who are being hauled before Parliament, do you see any unfair charge towards Sarah Adwoa Safo? The claim has been made that she is being singled out for this, that the two others being added, I mean, they are not catching any flack from the party, and that basically it's all a matter of Sarah Adwoa Safo and ousting her. And again, I want to go back to that call. You started addressing it, but you didn't hit the nail on the head. When it comes to her constituents pushing for this and saying she is incapable, she is not serving us, and so we want her out. That has not happened. So can you look at those two angles for me?
Okay, so usually or ideally that's what should happen. But the truth is, how many of her constituents are actually following the data, are actually following what is going on in Parliament? We've had parliaments that are somewhat detached from, or MPs that are detached from their constituents. They do not engage with them. At the same time, the constituents don't take up the responsibility of actually following their MPs to see that their core mandate is being executed. And one of this critically being representation. So if they don't have the data, they can't be the ones to initiate this. If our next report that we are going to release very soon would show you that there are even more culprits than these three. And so, again, if you say the constituents should initiate, on what basis? Do they have the data? Are they following their MP in terms of how representative they've been in terms of attendance and things like that? And so, how would they know whether your MP is in contravention of Article 97, Clause 1C? Because they do not have that information. They are they are not in a position of knowledge, and so they cannot initiate anything. Unfortunately, that is what has happened over a certain period. So, again, we should ask ourselves: should it be a situation where we wait for constituents to initiate this, or if someone we are all in a place when someone breaks the law or the rules of our House, we should enforce the punitive measures or the processes that start any form of punishment or any form of correction. That is what I think we should do, regardless whether your constituents have initiated or not. Once we are a house of rules, of our own rules, we should, which is also based on, by extension, the Constitution, we should initiate those, the decision or the processes to execute what the Constitution says or what the standing order says, rather than waiting for the constituents, because the constituents may share their responsibilities. At the same time, they may not be in a position of knowledge, and that may affect their efforts of ensuring that their MPs are accountable. Very few MPs carry out their core mandate, whether it's representation or whether it's engaging with their constituents, or whether it's actually making effort to do the work that happens at the committee level, you find a lot of MPs falling foul to this. And so for us, we believe that it's clear that your constituents cannot take this step. We need to use what the laws are. We as ODIPO would be making efforts in providing the data and providing citizens with the information so that they can take up the mantle of ensuring that their MPs are representing them. But that's the extent to which we can go. And so I believe that if people examine what is available, they may be able to take an action. We've seen in the past that when we provided data, people have decided that this person shouldn't go back to represent us because they haven't been in parliament enough, or they haven't spoken, and all the things that we've analyzed MPs on. And so clearly, we just need the data given to the citizens to take action. But if they do not take the action, I think that the House that has its own rules should apply the rules.
All right. My final bit to you on this, just hold for me after we're done. I'll bring them in and then maybe rope you in on some other matters with regard to Parliament. But is this a test for Parliament? Is this a hurdle that Parliament must pass or overcome or scale in order to show itself strong, effective, efficient moving forward? Because we've never seen, these have happened in the past, we've never seen them come to this point. Is this a hurdle that must be scaled?
It is a hurdle, and it is a good hurdle. It's a good hurdle because then you are starting a certain process that would deter others from falling foul, because they know that the law can bite. And so it's not business as usual. We are not treating each other with kid gloves. Once somebody petitions the Speaker or the House, the processes may commence. And that means that the simple thing of actually making sure that you are absent with permission would not be taken for granted. And so you would go through that process. And if you don't do so, you will lose your seat, or you'll be sent to the Privileges Committee. I think this is a good thing. You see, this Parliament that we have gives us an opportunity to reform a lot of things. And we shouldn't take it for granted. We should actually take advantage of the sort of Parliament we have to actually implement reforms and things that will actually move us forward, rather than the situation where we had business as usual because there was a certain status quo of a certain majority that always gave them the opportunity to take decisions in a certain way. Let's take advantage of this and continue using such situations as an opportunity to reform our Parliament, make our governance better.
I think I'll wrap with you, and that will be it. Just a final bit in about a minute. The minority leader is demanding an inquiry into the Achimota, and we're going into that issue now. The Achimota declassification situation, portions of the Achimota forest allegedly sold. And now we have a different situation where someone is even bequeathing land from the Achimota forest. What is your reaction to that?
I mean, I think that, again, a probe is in the right direction because it gives everybody the clarity on what the situation is. At this point, there are a lot of, should I say, statements going around. We've seen Honorable Janapo release a number of statements. We've seen an alleged will of Sir John, the late Sir John. And all of this seems like, you say maybe they are not coming from credible sources, or you may say that, okay, this is credible. What truly is the case? And I think that what the minority leader is asking for is a step in the right direction. It would give the public the confidence and will know the true situation on the ground. There's also the school of thought where public officers should declare assets. And I think that this is the time, again, to actually ensure that we do this, because all the people who are saying ABCD may not know what Sir John had before he became head of the forestry.
Yes, but there's a certain trajectory. Some say from 2017 till his unfortunate demise, and what was acquired in, every 3 months, 5 months, and all of that. I mean, 3-bedroom facilities, 4-bedroom facilities within that period. It's mind-boggling.
Well, so if we could trail, somebody may say that, okay, what if people were gifting him those properties? What if he had children somewhere who were...
So there's once it's iffy, and that's where it comes in, that we ought to let people declare their assets so we can actually follow through on this.
Exactly.
Okay.
And again, this comes back to having political will to do this, because we all want to take advantage of the situation. Nobody is ensuring that this is done. But if we do this, it's a step in the right direction to fight corruption to a large extent, because then people who are trying to amass wealth and trying to grab properties would go from that position to actually ensuring that they only stick to what may be there, unless they try to game the system. But that will also mean that it will become too much work, because then you are bequeathing things to family members and all, because if it's in your name, then it will go against what you have declared.
Okay. Nehemiah, I will have to leave it here, but I'm immensely grateful that you joined the conversation.
Thank you very much.
Atiga is principal lead at Odikro. All right.
Let me, if you permit me, with all humility, to just do what I hope will be some sort of education. Whilst doing it, I'll need to commend Nehemiah and his team for the work that they do at Odikro. So I can sense the excitement with which they may view what is currently happening, because they have been very concerned about absenteeism in Parliament. They have done a number of reports on absenteeism in Parliament, so they may be excited. But like I indicated earlier, the best test of Parliament will be to set the correct question and not the wrong question. He's right on the issue of the Constitution and what to do with members of Parliament who are absent. But our laws are set in such a way that they speak to each other. So you also have, I can immediately recall the law that says that when constituents are unhappy with, their MPs, they can petition Parliament, to get them removed from Parliament. Now, Parliament also in its standing orders has under Order 76 how petitions are to come before Parliament and how those petitions are to be treated. 76.1 says every application to Parliament shall be in the form of a petition, and every petition must be presented by a member who shall be responsible for the observance of the rules contained in Appendix A to these orders. A petition not relating to a breach of the privileges of the House, and which according to the rules or usual practice of the House can be received, shall be brought to the table by the direction of the Speaker. So even constituents of Adwoa Safo can find any member of Parliament and route their petition through them. And that is why Muntaka challenged that the Speaker didn't have the authority. And I agree with Muntaka, but I keep an open mind, because listening to a Speaker also defend his action, I felt he was also somehow covered by the standing, or there's logic in it. But the practice over the years has been what Muntaka was saying, that the petition, of this nature should have come through a member of Parliament before the Speaker. And if you look at 1642, it says that it shall be the duty of the committee by order of the House, not by order of the Speaker. It's by order of the House. So that is where I say I to some extent agree with Muntaka, but I keep an open mind, because Speaker's argument was also logic. And if you look at the whole...
Yeah, but the Speaker chairs the
exactly. If you look at even
the House.
If you look at even by order of the House is separate from the Speaker.
I get that, but I'm saying that that's why I didn't say that he is a member of the House. Yes. That's why I said that he chairs...
But majority of members of the House is order of the House. So that is why Muntaka said, look, you just... And the Speaker was also very smart in his response when he said that, look, it's a recommendation, it's a suggestion.
The Speaker is not a member of the House.
He was making a suggestion to the House, but he didn't even allow the House to take a decision on the suggestion he was making. But I also, to some extent, that, like I said, keep an open mind, because the whole standing order, we are told that the Speaker can even set it aside. He has the power to set it aside when we are dealing with things that are not covered by the standing order. So I think that Nehemiah and his group must be cautiously excited about this development. I think it must be done the right way, so that we test Parliament correctly and get Parliament to live up to its responsibility. But on the matter of the Achimota forest, if that is what you want us to comment on now, I think that our call should be supported by all. we have heard the back and forth. I have said that you cannot fault the minister for lack of effort, but unfortunately his efforts, at address, yes, Abujinapo, his efforts at addressing this matter and bringing clarity to it further just, raises more questions than answers.
He says the lands, actually, you can't even bequeath those lands, that it is an impossibility, that no one can claim those lands in question. And I don't know whether you're addressing it from the Owu family's standpoint.
I'm addressing the whole issue. And I'm saying that we have had the back and forth. The minister has issued.
It doesn't give clarity?
It does not give any clarity at all. We do not, for example, still know if the 361 acres have been sold or are yet to be sold, or if some of it has been sold, for which reason some people can bequeath it to their nephews. We do not know. So we need to establish this commission to settle that matter. We are not, very convinced about how an allocation of 90 acres or more, came down or went up to 118 acres, and then which was supposed to be.
Part of that was under your tenure.
I'm not challenging. I'm just saying, let us have a commission to settle all these matters, because we do not know who is telling us the truth. Let us find out how the allocation under President Kufuor, was treated by President Mahama and President Mills, and which was supposed to be a settlement. By my understanding, dealing with my party people, 118 acres was to be the settlement. And how all of a sudden we are told a new settlement of 361 acres came about. How was it resurrected after the settlement in 2014? We need a commission to establish that. Then again, the law that is even used by the president is found to be a faulty one. The EI 144 is premised on a wrong law, a law that has been repealed by the Land Use and Spatial Planning, Act. It's been repealed. So, as we sit now, the EI 144 that is supposed to reclassify the forest is premised on a wrong law and should be treated as with no effect. It has really no effect. And that's why we need a commission of inquiry to come out with recommendations that we will all be satisfied with, that will serve to protect the forest. Because you see, the focus of this discussion, this whole back and forth, should be how to preserve the Achimota forest so that it will continue to serve us with all the ecological benefits that we derive from the forest. That should be our focus.
That should be the bottom line.
That should be the bottom line. I think a public commission of inquiry into the matter will determine the issues that are not clear and conclude with recommendations that we will ensure the protection of the Achimota.
So I get your point. Let's shed light on it so that we can look at whatever cobwebs are in there, and then
we take it out.
How do you feel about this whole situation about giving this out on compassionate grounds?
Well, you see, governance, I haven't really been in government for a very long time, but having come close to it, I can imagine some of the considerations that people in government have to make, in running the country, especially in this part of our world. In my view, I think that the problem started with the decision of, and I have said it repeatedly on other platforms, with the decision of the then government headed by President Kufuor to even entertain the request of the Owu family. Because I have said that
that was wrong?
That was completely wrong. I think it was dangerous, not just wrong. Because you see, all the forest reserves that we have in this country, there are about 282 of them. None have had compensation paid for by government. But you have landowners whose lands are used as forest reserve, the Shai Hills, the Ankasa, Mole, and others. There are landowners there. We take those lands and use them as reserves without paying them a penny. It is only the Achimota forest that you even have part of it being paid for by the colonial government. So when you entertain a request by family members to return, part of this land to them, you send a wrong signal to other landowners across the country. And you may give them the, encouragement to also begin to demand that parts of those forest reserves will return to them. So for me, the problem, began when we entertained the request of the Owu family. No government should have entertained the request of the Owu family. But once it was granted them, they kept raising the issue that you are being unfair to us by taking it away from us because it's been given to us by another government. It's been given to us by another government. So you are being unfair, taking it out from us.
Let's
so I understand that what happened under the NDC was that what was granted was considered the core part of the forest. And because they kept raising the issue of unfairness on compassionate grounds, and because the government also was trying to maximize the utility of the forest by turning it into an eco park, they thought it was not going to hurt that much to give them the periphery, of the forest. And carried forward. And that was supposed to be a settlement. But that is, for me, the issue. It was supposed to be the end of the matter because the family signed to that agreement and actually registered the leases and subleases. So it was supposed to end the matter. It appears that matter does
not have a tail.
So how did it resurrect again such that they now have to get 361?
Which is why you're calling for the inquiry.
Exactly.
Just to wrap, because this is the final issue we're discussing, when he has his bite, we'll basically be drawing the curtains on the program on this bell. I'd like to find out, so zeroing in from the larger issue of the Owu family to the issue of Sir John, may his soul rest in peace. How do you find the dynamics? 3, different parcels of land, 2 whose acreages we know, 1 that we don't even know. And some have said that that could be the crown jewel in the sense that could be very expansive, and we don't even know it. But interesting that when this Achimota saga comes, this one also sort of, is unearthed. Your reaction to that, and take it from the standpoint, people are now looking, very ordinary people, and saying, hey, inti sebi near kosono inti mochecheche, and the rest of us more checheche.
I saw a joke on Facebook that said that, well, this was just a man taking care of trees. And if he could acquire all of this, you can imagine the man taking care of oil or, the money of the state, what the person may be able to acquire. And that's on a lighter note. But I think that we need to revisit the issue of asset declaration. And for me, the issue
like Nehemiah was saying.
Yes. The issue is made worse when you have the fact that Sir John never even declared his assets when he was supposed to have done so. I mean, all public officers under 284, Article 284, I believe, are supposed to, declare their assets. This is 2864, I think, supposed to declare their assets. And if he didn't do that, and if you look at the dates, that these properties were acquired, and compared to his income as CEO of the Forestry Commission, you clearly cannot, miss the reason why people are calling for us to revisit the issue of asset declaration. And I think, again, under...
Would you be willing to declare your assets?
I do so every time. I mean, every time.
Since you've been in public service?
Public service.
You've always declared your assets?
I've always declared my assets.
Every year?
Not every year. I'm supposed to do it at the beginning of...
and at the end of your
10,
term.
yes. So I think that we need to take a second look at that. And I think it's 2864. I'm not very sure.
All right, final point.
The Constitution.
Final point.
Where it talks about unexplained wealth. And we must look at it. And our, what do you call it? Investigative bodies, maybe they may not have to wait for the triggers to take this up, because some people have said that we should pass the law that will ensure, but it's already in our Constitution 2864, I think. It says that, let me just share with you, any property or assets acquired by a public officer after the initial declaration required by clause 1 of this article, and which is not reasonably attributable to income. So if you have declared your assets and it is determined that you have acquired some assets that is not reasonably attributable to your income, gift, loan, inheritance, or any other reasonable source, shall be deemed to have been acquired in convention of this Constitution. So
in contravention.
Yes,
I think
it is is it in contravention? Yes. Did I say?
Conventions.
Oh, contravention. Okay.
Of
this Constitution.
So it is very clear.
It is important that we set up a commission of inquiry. All these matters, I'm sure, will be determined before the commission of inquiry.
Dr. Nyako, so we actually have to let you know, He spent about 4+ minutes, but we actually have 3 minutes left. I don't know whether you can work within that period.
More than that.
But no, that's not.
But you see, I think.
But I just want to quickly find out from you. Do you declare your assets? Have you declared your assets?
I'll give it to my lawyer to look at it for me.
So the process is on.
Yeah.
All right.
Because it's important for us to do that. So for me, this whole issue, I agree with him that we need to look into the matter comprehensively. From 2007, there should be a proper inquiry into the issues surrounding the Owu family and the Achimota forest. And I also think that we need to also go back to 1921, 1927, 1930 to look into what happened there in terms of documentations. You know what I mean? Because we are told that the acquisition in 1921 was duly compensated. About £4,000 was paid. But what we are not sure is about the acquisition in 1927. Right. And I think that we need to
That's part of the major
archives.
problem.
We need to go into the archives because, for me, I'm surprised that 1921 it was paid in 1922, but 1927 it's not paid. It baffles me and beats my imagination. Let us go into it to ascertain the truth or otherwise.
But looking at the record keeping of our country, is that something that?
But if you could find the one in
21 and 22.
Why can't you find the other one
27.
in 1927? You know,
Right.
So it's strange. We need to look. For me, any comprehensive investigation into it, for me, must be done. And the issue regarding...
So if you say that, then do you agree with them when they say there must be, this inquiry, like a thorough inquiry into it? I mean, then it feeds into what you're saying.
That's my position. You know what I mean? I want it to be done so that, we get into the facts rightly.
All right.
To clear doubts on everybody's mind.
That point is made. When it comes to Sir John's issue, how do you react to it?
Sir John, for me, I'm waiting for the outcome of the investigation into, his estate. And when that one is done, then we all speak to it. For me, it is very worrying. Somebody who has worked for a very long time, being in public service, being in private service and all that. And that's, we have to be very careful about how we...
But we're looking, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we are looking at the window for when he adopted
I'm coming there.
that position
that is,
till his demise.
That is what I'm saying, that we need to go into it. Okay, whatever is impropriety in there must be dealt with. If the investigation shows that something untoward had been done regarding the acquisition of these properties, I think that the state should come in and confiscate those assets. I'm being careful. I want the outcome. If it is if it is illegitimately done, then we need to deal with it.
Okay.
And the state must
so basically,
get it back.
let's play the waiting game. Let's get the full facts. And
Yes, because I don't want to jump the gun. I want the outcome of the investigation, so that if we are convinced that A, B, C, D property are not properly acquired, they were illegally acquired, then the state goes in and makes sure that the right things are done. All right. That for me should be the mindset.
Gentlemen.
And political actors and public office holders must be very careful. We are in government not to amass wealth. We are in government to serve the people. We are in government to protect the state. We are in government to ensure that the well-being of the citizenry is well catered for. We're not in there to enrich ourselves. That attitude is so wrong. And that, if you're not careful, that fits into the narrative in the minds of the people. Let us lead by examples and do the right things so that all of us are not painted with the same brush.
Okay.
Now, the mindset is that all of us, are in this and we agree and all that. But it's not all of us. There are some people who are clean, who are decent, who think about the welfare of the
But the blanket is being thrown over all of them.
That is very, very unfair.
Dr. Kingsley Nyako is Member of Parliament for Kwada. So thank you so much, sir, for joining the conversation. Alhassan Suini, Member of Parliament for Tamale North. Thank you for joining the conversation. That's how we draw the curtains on the big stories. But Yendi SHS is 50 years. We'll tell you more about this right after the break.